So today I wanted to talk about something that's kind of probably unpopular, probably controversial again. Trigger warnings. See, I don't think they're bad to use. I think that they're actually a pretty decent, thing to use, especially if you're writing or reading something that may be triggering to you. However, I think just like the word pedo, we use it way too often. We use it way too often, and so now it has these that have no meanings. For example, when you hear someone calling someone else a pedo, do you automatically think they actually diddled some children, or do you just think maybe they were on the wrong side of a ship war? Because I generally remember Voltron. I remember Keith and Shiro being a ship. I remember being put on the Auntie's block list and reported to the FBI because I shipped cartoon characters they didn't agree with. And that is one of the reasons why the word doesn't really hold much weight anymore. It's we use it so often that it means literally nothing. And the same thing goes for trigger warnings, because I was on Instagram and someone made a video that was essentially explaining that after being raped, a lot of women would have hypersexuality as a side effect, like as a part of their PTSD. That is a fact. It's a clinical fact. It's not like they were doing like any kind of fictionalized. They weren't going into detail. They were just saying hypersexualization is something that may happen after you have been raped. This is a thing. And in the comments, everyone's going, "You should have used a trigger warning." And as someone who has had use for trigger warnings in the past, if you use them for the stupidest, smallest things, then the person no longer believes that they're worth listening to. Here's a good anecdote. I read about a study in a hospital where they had this new computer system that would give an alert to the main nurse's station whenever anyone's blood pressure, pulse, whatever, went like one digit out of the correct range. So, like, for example, using diabetes, because I'm diabetic, let's say my blood sugar is 150, it goes to 151, the nurses get buzzed. Now, obviously, if you're getting buzzed for 1 or 2 over it, that's normal. It fluctuates, stuff fluctuates. So after a while, the nurses started blocking out that beeping noise. And therein lies the problem. They started blocking out the beeping noise, and they started missing the real ones. And people were dropping 10, 20 points under, or going 20 points over, and then they would die because the nurses were so used to it going off that they no longer felt alarm. And besides that, with trigger warnings, just the word rape itself is not going to trigger anyone. They have to have a name for it, even to themselves. And if it really is so bad that you can't even say the word, they need to be in therapy, not on the internet, because the internet's not a safe place to be, period. You have to cultivate your own experience there. And it's just somewhat frustrating to me because I'm an advocate for putting whatever the fuck you want on the internet, as long as you tag it properly, for fanfiction at least. But the idea of using trigger warnings for every little detail, if you say trigger warning underage because there's a child in your story, like, eventually I'm gonna end up clicking on the wrong thing because I think that, again, you're under tagging when everyone else is under tagging, and you tag accurately. Number 2 today, let's talk about trauma, because so many people are selling their trauma on the internet. Like, it's one thing to admit something through, like, a vlog or in a personally cathartic way, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to, like, go on your YouTube channel and explain your own stories. That's fine. I'd do it. I'd be a hypocrite if I said otherwise. However, my biggest problem is when people will use it as, like, a get out of jail free card. For example, it'll be like, I was being bullied and called names, so I was raped. And then you have to be quiet because they threw out this Trump card. It's kind of like when people come under fire and they're like, "I'm non-binary, ha ha ha." Demi Lovato. Like, I'm sorry, it's kind of, some of these, I'm not gonna ever play the devil's advocate with it. I'm not ever gonna be like, "Oh, the victim could be lying," but I'm not gonna call you out on it. But when you use these things to get out of being in trouble, it kind of just feels like you're selling your trauma for clout or to get out of trouble, basically. And I just think on it. When you put out all this information out there, there's a difference between when I tell my friends and when I say here. My friends know a lot more about me. If they ever want to make a real all video, I'd be screwed. But I can tell my friends about more personal issues because they're my friends and they're in my real life. If I go on the internet and say a whole bunch of traumatic stuff happened, well, now you all know exactly how to get under my skin. You know exactly how to make me feel like shit, how to trigger me, and how to potentially bully me, So those are just my two things I want to talk about, because I try to avoid internet conversation. Like literally, my entire internet use is just Tumblr and occasionally Instagram and mostly AO3, where I'm just reading fan fiction or scrolling through and looking at shit posts. I'm not the type of person who wants to argue on Instagram or something or in the comment section. I don't seek out triggering stuff. But when the stuff comes across my dash, it gets me thinking. Just for example, here's me opening up to you in a non clout chasing way, because this is just, I've already mentioned it before in other videos, but I was in a mental hospital a couple times in high school for depression, and afterwards I watched this show called The Magicians. I love The Magicians, mind you. It is a great show, but in the first season, one of the characters' friends basically traps him in his mind in a dream that he's still in the mental hospital, and all the magic stuff that he thought he experienced was all just a lie. So basically it was gaslighting to the extreme in a mental hospital. That was triggering for me. I actually had a panic attack the first time I watched the episode, but eventually I worked through it. I didn't immediately seek it out to rewatch it or anything, but the next time I did rewatch the series, I watched it again and the panic wasn't so bad. And obviously, another thing is that it's not like it's a super widespread trigger, you know? And since the show, if I had been spoiled ahead of time with a trigger warning that Quentin is actually just in his head, I wouldn't have really enjoyed that reveal as much. Even if it was triggering that moment, I'm not advocating for trigger warnings on everything. I think one of the best ways to deal with it is like what they do in AO3 nowadays, is you can have a note at the top of the story and one at the bottom, and at the top it'll say trigger warnings at the bottom. That way you have the choice to seek out the knowledge of what's in the story is potentially triggering, and then sort of scroll down to see if you want to look. I don't know how you really implement this into video form. I'm not a TikTok person, but I thought I'd at least bring this up. So, as you can see, I'm in my car because I'm going on to my third babysitting job of the day, and I have another 30 minutes before I have to be there. So I'm sitting at McDonald's, wasting time because I don't want to go there early. I want to be on my phone. I haven't posted in a little while, so please let me know in the comments down below, what do you think? And today's code word is a shout out to my friend Mokhtar. Belpois. Try spelling that. I bet none of y'all can spell that one. I'll see you guys next time.